unfavorably with the ratio you would see in other big events like this?
Yeah.
Other questions?
Just to sort of return in a way to Commissioner Britt's original point, suppose marijuana was legal for adults in the city, and you saw so there wasn't an issue of adults consuming illegal substances, and you saw the same conduct, the same results at Hempstalk that you see now, would you still be recommending denial of permit?
The major challenge that we have with Hempstalk is their general desire is to not confront any of their attendees. They don't want them searched. They want them to come free, unencumbered into the park. So without a requirement to eliminate that, without completely searching every individual, there's no way that you could be certain that minors wouldn't enter the park. My assumption is.
So, Commissioner Novick, as the security manager for Portland Parks and Recreation, and I will draw an analogous comparison, and that is that we do have events that serve alcohol, and we require that those events have adequate security, and one of the lines that is very clear and bright that need to be drawn is that you do not allow minors to imbibe or consume any alcohol. And if we were to see a permit that condoned that type of behavior, we would address it immediately. I know the police would address it immediately, and the expectation is that every effort would be made on their part, as well as the city assisting them to make sure that we reduce that. And that's not what we're seeing with this event. We're not seeing that kind of attention and or intent to try to make sure that this event, first and foremost, that people aren't imbibing, and if it were legal, we want to make sure that minors are not involved in that activity.
This event doesn't have an alcohol permit, right?
Correct.
Thanks for the questions. Okay, thanks. Obviously, we may have questions, more questions for you later in the hearing.
Here, since we allowed the staff 14 minutes, we suggest that we allow 15 minutes.
And Mr. Stanford and Mr. Appel and Mr. Sharp. Good afternoon, welcome.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for Douglas Paul Stanford. And I'd like to thank you for scheduling this hearing. I understand it's unusual nature. And the first thing I'd like to say is we did not see some of the after reports on this event until 72 hours ago. So we've had very little time to prepare any sort of rebuttal or a PowerPoint presentation photographs. So first of all, we asked for more time to be able to prepare a more thorough response. Secondly, we're willing to make concessions or cooperate with the city and the Parks Department in any manner. Some of the issues around Kelly Point Park are that it's a peninsula and with broad openings. Controlling the entry point is virtually impossible. About 95% of Kelly Point Park is forested, and it's surrounded by beaches that are not controlled by the park. We had no ability to tell people to move from those beaches. We were shown photographs approximately 3 or 4 hours into the event and said, this is your chance to address these issues. We called all the security people, over 30 of them paid, bonded, licensed security people, and asked them to address those issues, to move those vehicles. And so in the photos you've been shown, I'd like to know a timestamp on those and when, if they were among those photos that were shown to us and that we had a meeting during the event and addressed and had vehicles moved and structures removed. Our event is not a smoke-in or a smoke-out, and we're not there to publicly consume cannabis or any other substance. We have food booths. We want people to eat and drink water. But our event is primarily meant to advocate for the restoration of cannabis for fuel, fiber, food, medicine, and adult social use. And in fact, at this event, the day before, we were given before we started the event, we were given permission to circulate 3 initiatives, and we launched those initiative drives at our event, gathered thousands of signatures on these state initiative drives. And that's one of our primary focuses, is our political activity to restore hemp for fuel, fiber, food, and medicine. And we're more than willing to make concessions, again, in closing, make concessions and work with the city. One of our reasons for moving to Waterfront Park, and we had done our first 2 events at Waterfront Park without major incident. And we lost our ability to go there. We were just told last year we could move back to Waterfront Park. But at Waterfront Park, we have much more control over the access. There wouldn't be a huge forested area. We can't, policing dozens of acres of woodland at Kelly Point Park is even beyond the purview of our 30 hired security staff and our 30 or 40 volunteer security people. By concentrating our event downtown, the parking issues would be resolved, there'd be public transportation, and it would resolve a lot of the issues that we have. So, first of all, we ask more time to prepare for to rebut some of the charges made against us here today. And second, we ask that if you do just make a decision today, you direct the Parks Department to cooperate with us rather than oppose us in establishing just and reasonable access to Waterfront Park. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Bradley Steinman, who is representing.
Hi,
Thank you.
I'm Bradley Steinman, OSB 136110. And I'd just like to point out that this after action report is a special event from the Portland Police Bureau concerning contradictory and his instructions contrary in our actions. First off, first page says that Kelly Point Park is a very secluded area in the far north end of the precinct. The event invites people to come smoke marijuana, as the event organizers support medical marijuana and the legalization of marijuana in general. The primary concern was parking issues that surround the event. If we were issued a permit for a different location that was reasonable, then we would not have that primary issue, which was transportation. And contrary to any concerns about health and safety, in terms of cleanliness of the park, it says that we had 21 garbage recycling can stations. And that the following sentences: most of the trash was clean, posted by staff. But garbage was still prevalent in the area after they cleaned. Most of the trash being cleaned. I think we need most of the trash being cleaned. In terms of recommendations on page 4, the after action report special event. The first sentence: this year's event concluded without any major incidents. Had any occurred? I need not even finish the sentence. It notes again that the event is in a secluded portion of the precinct. It would have taken at least 20 to 30 minutes to get enough resources to effectively start handling a large fight, had one occurred. There was no large fights. They only had 7 officers and 1 sergeant detailed this event, yet that was enough for there to be no fights and no major incidents. The point I'm trying to make is that this is a peaceful protest event, and what is at issue could potentially be something with objective criteria. The event organizers do not try to conceal that this event is an open forum for people to use illegal substances. Actually, it's not that. It's about advocating for the legalization of marijuana and the Tom, the last page I'd like to say something about is command comes from Lieutenant Todd Wise. It is clear that this event has the sole purpose of selling and smoking marijuana, which is against the law. I appreciated Commissioner Nobody's future questions and the individual specialty of Stanford and arguments with Bob. But the main concern was that the legal activity might do it. And it was also fortunate that there were no deaths or serious injuries. So we know that the risks to public safety and health are such that there are no deaths and no serious injuries. Now, we have not had the time to look at after events, special action reports in Portland Police Bureau. But what we did was request them from similarly situated events that take place on Waterfront Park, similar in size, and some of the alcohol events like Food Fest and Booze Fest. And I got some permit reports from PPR, just going at 10 a.m., but I couldn't get after action reports, special events, and those had to be cleared, and the process could take up to 20 days. So in terms of us requesting postponement, I really need to introduce awareness, because I don't think that we can even make legitimate arguments without having access to all the facts and the arguments that we can extend. I feel like we're kind of being caught out there. And we'd really like to negotiate and settle. What we want is to be able to hold this event. And one of the main concerns for us is public safety. And we are willing to work with the city, the PPR, the PPD to come up with a written security protocol for standard operating procedures. And the truth is that it's very difficult and sensitive to come up with a standard operating procedure that complies with the city code and also respects First Amendment rights. And the fact that this is a free public event on our part, and it's a free speech event, it's got a political message, it concerns protected First Amendment speech and assembly rights. And we can't do things necessarily because we're restrained by other laws. So we have a kind of conflict between which way we're directed. We need some assistance, we're asking for it, because we want to be able to draft with safety and with security in mind. We don't want to violate anyone's constitutional rights, or we want to keep everybody safe. So what we're asking for is time to negotiate and settle with the city. And we'd like to work together. We'd like to show you that we're kind of doing the diligence to do everything we can, and that public health and safety is the most concern for us. And additionally, we always do the parks cleaning every now and then. And I'd like to point out that they said we had 21 names. We actually had 7. We get them from the Morgan Live every year. And in addition, we had a 40-yard, 30-yard, and a 10-yard large dumpster. And one of those large dumpster bins was left on site. We did that preemptively without even being asked to by the city to make sure that we don't leave on site the garbage and mess. So by Monday at 5 p.m., the last cigarette butt had been picked up from one of the grasslands in the ground on the park. And there was a refrigerator, an ice box that was still there, and the dumpster that was still there. And the dumpster was some sort of accident or mistake with regard to the vendor of the recycling company that we chose. And they dropped it off last day. They picked up some of the other ones, the other 2 large dumpsters that we had. And they knew what day and time our permit expired. They knew they had to be out there by 5 p.m. They got to set for a few more days. But we would be happy to work with the vendor. We really want to work with the city to make sure that every single vendor that we use or contractor is approved by you guys, and that we work with you guys for everything. And I think that in terms of public safety and security, getting standard written operating procedure incorporated into our conditions that we can get some serious help with, given the sensitive issues and the different directions that we can hold legally, that we can make sure that we have the safest time possible. And ultimately, we just want to be able to share our message and have a sort of event. We want to have it at Parkland Park, unless there's a certain reason that I'm aware of why we have to have it at Parkland Park, because the reason maybe they don't want us to do it at Park. That's just
I'd like to just add as well, that we went and got a statement from the sanitation company that's included in the record that we turned in, that directly contradicts what Parks and Recreation presented here, saying that the facilities were overused. They said that they were about 25% of the capacity, were in great shape. That they would recommend the same level of sanitation, portable restrooms with that same turnout next year. So that's just one instance. We think we could come up with a lot more instances that would counter the evidence that Parks and Recreation has presented. But we had no idea about the after report until 72 hours ago. So we really haven't had time to.
I know you probably have some more to say, let me really talk about this here just for background's sake if I could. And that is, I didn't follow that history in those previous years when you were coming in. I followed you here, but it's recounted for me. You were in Waterfront
Park is 2005 and 2006.
And then
We were in Selwood
Okay.
Park in 2007.
Okay.
The East Bank Promenade in 2008. And since 2009, we've been in Kelly Point Park. And we were told that Waterfront Park was not available. We said, well, that has always been our goal, is to move our event back to Waterfront Park because of the transportation, public transit infrastructure, the lack of, forested grounds that are outside of our ability to safely patrol. And so we were told in meetings with Sean Rogers and other people in the Portland Parks and Recreation Division last year that our application to move back to Waterfront Park would be looked at favorably this year. That was prior to our event last September. And so we turned in our application. There we go.
And that moving around from Waterfront Park to Selwood and then to East Bank, was that your idea, or was that the only thing the park was making available to you, or what was the reason for that odyssey?
Well, we couldn't move back to Waterfront Park, so we tried Selwood. Selwood had a single narrow driveway in there. That was obviously unworkable. Going to the East Bank Promenade, being under the freeway, we had a lot of toxins in the environment, and the sound was not favorable. And so we moved to Kelly Point Park.
So you were looking for, given that you were assuming you can't go to Waterfront Park for whatever reason, you were looking for a place that would work. And
Exactly.
you found each of those to have some conditions. Yeah,
And at Kelly Point Park, the parking has always been an issue. We think we done better at it each day of our operations. We have a letter, I think is part of the record that we turned in, showing that the Civic Center parking had a positive experience with us parking there, as well as the boards that we put out directing people not to park down there. And we directed the security staff to address the parking, and we paid the city $4,000 in addition to the regular permit fee for parking patrol to ticket and tow the people who were parking outside the park illegally.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that background.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, my name is Michael Becerra. I'm one of the event organizers for the Portland Hempstalk. I've been working with Terry Coker and Portland Parks Recreation Festival since 2008. When we first submitted an application after Terry's initial approval, we began obtaining sign-offs from various departments within the city. I take every division seriously. Every year we get sign-offs from the fire marshal. Michelle Schofield, Portland's fire marshal, is familiar with our event. Every year we are in compliance with their rules. Sombra Forest is the health inspector we deal with for our food handlers permits. They inspect every year, as they did this year. We have asked for their logs and are proud to say none of our food vendors were shut down. They were all in compliance. Bethany Davison is in charge of the sustainability program at PSU. Every year we obtain 50 recycling stations, the blue recycling stations, to be placed throughout the park. It is required for a sign-up. We also work with Kelly Johnson at Oregon Live. This year they provided us with 70 boxes. The map that says 21, there was multiple boxes at each spot. It's not just 21, there was 70, and I have the receipts to show what I'm saying there. The bathrooms and hand washing stations were provided by United Site Services, a reputable company within Florida. The lady Amora McBride submitted testimony and to the fact that the bathrooms were out in Bureau of Transportation and others to address their concerns. I began working with Matthew Machado on 4 virtual message boards that were to be placed along Marine Drive. They were contracted to American Barricade. The sign said, "No parking Marine Drive, parking Expo Center, $2 shuttle." The festival was allowed to take place because Ken Barton, the parking manager of the Portland Expo Center, allowed us to use their 2,200 car lot, and the team from Cascade Student Union gave us buses.
To me, the main issue is minors using illegal substances. Do you deny that minors were consuming and smoking marijuana?
Well, I would say that this is a free public event, and in Kelly Point Park, as we said, it's a little bit more difficult to meet Hempstalk. We were at Waterfront Park, we wanted to work free, and we had to look at the best way to enclose the permitted area, and we had people stand out there to do everything that was safe.
You don't deny it.
We certainly didn't condone, and we'd be willing to limit access to future events.
And how about the issue of not allowing the security to search those folks that did stop at the
That goes to a sensitive constitutional free speech and First Amendment. Those that we're concerned about working with the city to be able to figure out the best way to handle this.
Well, we have searches at Dublin Field for everybody who takes a baggage, so I'm not.
Well, ours is a free donation not recommended, open to the public, it's a public event, political gathering. It's like the March on Washington. We are protesting cannabis prohibition.
And we're demonstrating.
We have
But
security
we would be
measures.
happy to set up an entry point, but we weren't asked to do that. And what had taken place was a random, non-warranted search of, there wasn't a reason to search a particular bag. They just go randomly pick people out of the crowd to search their purse and things
So
like that.
not everything.
If there
is-
was a reason to search someone's purse, they were suspected of illegal activity, we would, certainly wouldn't oppose that.
We have rules for events in parks because not everything that's legal on a sidewalk or in other places are legal in a public park. So are you saying that you would not agree to having a routine bag search?
No, I said exactly that we would be happy to do that, but we weren't directed to. If we had been asked to have everyone's bag search on entry, we would have complied with that. That wasn't requested.
So what I would say is that for 2014, we're willing to work with the city to do whatever you guys desire. We are eager to. We'd like to come up with some sort of design, fencing arrangement, or security written procedural protocol that can be applied fairly, evenly across the board, to apply to all applicable relevant laws.
And I don't know what the council is going to choose to do with this appeal. Even if they would deny the permit this time, would be allowed to submit for another permit. It's the burden of proof is on the applicant to provide us a security plan, which we can approve. It's not up to us to tell you what we need to do.
I guess what I would just say is that we are very interested in working together with the city, and we are not interested in taking this to court, pursuing or appealing that, and that we just want to hold our event. We hold a set of reasonable conditions and alternate site plan.
And we're certainly willing to make any concessions.
And we have,
Well, let me be very clear. To me, the issues of parking and garbage are serious and so that's what I'll be interested in hearing about from others testifying on this appeal as to whether there is a likelihood that that happened and that there would be a likelihood it happened.
Is there a likelihood that, I guess I want to say, do you think it's unique to Portland and Hempstalk that there are minors there consuming illegal drugs or alcohol illegally? Or is that the sort of thing that is possible that occurs at Brew Fest or Portland Blues Festival or any of the dozens and dozens of alcohol festivals that we have in the city of Plymouth?
As all of those, I have seen various controls of who gets into the alcohol, where the average who gets into substances out of the
Well, unfortunately for our team over here, we have not been able to see any accurate reports, and that's why we requested delay. Because we feel like we're prejudiced by not having access to those.
And we think there are a lot of fights that occur at those events, a lot of muggings and knifings, and we've never had anything like that in our 9-year history.
We're a peaceful protest.
Well, we may have more questions for you. We got other folks queued up to testify, but.
Thank you.
Can I have one question? On the issue, you're saying that you could have access to the abstract reports until 2 hours ago. But you did get a letter on December 16th explaining the denial of the permit, which to me seems to raise the same issues. Can you explain to me why you feel you're prejudiced by not having access to the after action reports when you did get a list of the reasons for denial on December 16th?
The letter says that we didn't address concerns. It didn't say what those concerns were, and those concerns were we were never privy to those concerns. It's kind of generic, we didn't address concerns. What were those concerns? Those were obviously included in the police after.
Actually, Mr. Stanford, the letter lists a number of concerns, such as event personnel were deliberately different than the rampant present sale and use of marijuana, medibles, and alcohol, including use by minors.
And that's just not true. Word. And we directed objection to people who were, and had many people ejected.
How many?
I can't tell you.
And I would say that no matter prejudice, that's just from my perspective as their attorney. I got on the case on Monday, and it's Thursday, Monday, so I only had 72 hours or so to kind of get onto this and start requesting information and get through the Portland Parks and Recreation procedures. And I've contacted people from the Portland Parks and Rec, and the Police Bureau has all been very helpful and generous in time. But it's just a matter that it takes 20 business days to access public record for